Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another, this time more serious video, and we are back on the TR-09. This is the second video in the series, so if you haven't yet seen the first, just check it out here. We looked at how to factory reset the unit, how to set up using some of the hidden menu features to get it to sound a little bit more, give it a bit more oomph, and then how to make a pattern using step right and tap right. So in this video now we're going to look at creating more than one pattern, chain those patterns together, use the copy function, and then we'll have a look at the track right function, how to chain patterns together, and how to use the copy, insert and delete function. Because the TR-09, you know, you and I could sit here all day creating one pattern, but what if you wanted to make a track or a song to go along with the rest of the hardware or software that you've got in your setup? So what we'll do is we'll just have a brief recap on how to put 4 patterns in, just so that we can see the pattern chain in the copy function. So we'll just take it out of track play and put it into pattern play, and then just make sure you've got either step or tap mode, pattern right mode selected. So let's go for step, so shift and step, and then pattern 1. Obviously you've got a factory provided pattern, so if we press clear and press number 1, sorry, hold down clear and press number 1, we've cleared pattern number 1. Let's go ahead and clear pattern number 2, pattern number 3 and pattern number 4. So now all these patterns are blank, oops, because I'm in step mode, and number 2, yep, all blank. So let's go ahead and quickly put in, using step and tap, a pattern on number 1. So we'll select pattern number 1, and then if we play, instrument select, let's put a bass drum in, and then the accented or the higher volume note, we'll put a 4 to the floor beat in. And then what we'll do is we'll tap in some open hi-hats, so shift and tap right mode, get it started, and then we need to hold down both the open and close to get to the open hi-hat. Okay, so that gives us pattern number 1, so let's just stop that. So let's now copy pattern number 1 to pattern number 2, and then we'll put a bit of a variation on it so we can see the distinction between the two patterns. Now in the manual that Roland gives you, it's all about copy, but to get your head around it and to save you overwriting a pattern that you've just spent hours creating or getting right, I like to call it retrieval. So what we need to do is select pattern number 2 first, which is obviously blank, and we need to retrieve the pattern we've just made, which is pattern number 1, and sort of copy it over to number 2. So get your head around the fact that it's retrieve a pattern, not copy a pattern. So if we press shift and copy, yep, we're currently on number 2, but if we press number 1 and then press enter, now number 2 hopefully should be okay, and number 1 hopefully should be, yep. If you was to do it the other way around and try and select number 1 first and copy it to number 2, which, if you know, with modern computers now, that's the kind of copy kind of mode of operation, you'll accidentally retrieve pattern 2 and put it onto pattern 1, and that's all you work over. So just be careful of that one. Remember, it's retrieve, not copy. So with pattern number 2, let's add another variation. Make sure we've got pattern number 2 selected first, and let's just, we're still in tap right mode, so let's just add in a clap. There we go, just stop that. Okay, so now let's retrieve pattern number 2 to number 3. So if we go to pattern number 3, obviously blank, and then shift, press copy, or as I like to say, retrieve from number 2, and then press enter, and then number 3 should now be. So let's make this a bit more distinctive from the second pattern. Let's add some a rim shot and some toms. So I'm in tap right mode, so fire it up, and let's add a medium tom. Okay, cool. So let's now copy that or retrieve it from onto number 4. So I've selected pattern number 4, shift 11, which is copy, pattern number 3 we want to retrieve, and then enter that. Pattern number 4 should be. Now let's make this a bit more distinctive. Let's add in a snare roll. So we're in tap mode. This one. Okay, so we've got 4 distinct patterns that we can now chain together. Okay, so with the copy function, you can actually copy to any bank, any pattern group, and any pattern on the unit, but we'll save that until a future video. Okay, so to chain these 4 patterns together, what I recommend you do first is just take it out of either step or tap right mode. So just press pattern 1, pattern group 1, because that's where our patterns currently are, and then let's go back to track 1. We press and hold pattern 1 and then press the last pattern, which is pattern 4. This will give us the similar result. So while we are looking at pattern chain, and obviously I want you to get the best possible performance out of this unit, let's just look at the way I use pattern chain when I'm using other hardware and putting a track together. So if we just press shift and go to step right mode, let's have pattern number 5. Let's just clear it. Yep, that's blank. And then let's instrument select and a crash. So let's put that on number 1. Just turn it up a bit, and let's instrument select and the bass drum and the higher bass drum. So that is pattern number 5, which is just a crash and a bass drum. Stop that. And then pattern number 6, let's just clear pattern number 6, and this is going to be our blank pattern. So if we go back to pattern chain, so let's just go to pattern play, and let's chain 1 to 4 together while it's running. I know at any point now I can just press 5 and then 6, and we get a blank sort of break drop in the beat while it's still in time with all your other hardware. At any point I can just pattern chain it back again. So it will go through the 4 patterns again, get to pattern 4, press pattern 5, press pattern 6, go off and do your break in the track, and then if you want to come back into any point, you can just press 3, just chain it again. Also, if you do want a longer snare roll, one of the things you can do is if you chain 1 to 4, we know the snare roll's on 4. If we get this running and then I press number 4, it will complete the entire track chain, and then it will stay on 4. So obviously now you can do a build up with all your other hardware, and then whenever you're ready, press 5, goes to 5, press 6, and then you want to bring that snare roll back in, just press 4. And then if you want to go back to the pattern chain again, 1 and 4. So I think you kind of get the idea behind pattern chain. Not only pattern chain, but having a couple of various patterns as well, just to break to or drop to or build up to, if that makes sense. So now that we've put a couple of patterns together and pattern chained them and had a little bit of experience playing with the patterns, we are going to look at track play and track write. So what you want to do is you can either have bank I or bank II, and then whichever track you want. So I'm holding down shift and pressing the bank buttons, but let's select bank I and then track 1. I didn't press shift when I pressed track 1, and let's just have a go at playing a track. So there's a couple of functions with the start and the stop and continue. Let's just cover it in the simplest fashion first. So obviously start, and then it will run through each measure of the track that you've currently got programmed. If you stop it and then obviously press continue, it will just continue from that very point that you stopped it. So let's just press start again, and you'll notice that it goes back to measure number 1. Now if you're timing this with a, say, a track that's on vinyl for whatever reason and you want to get the timing, if you hold down shift, and let's see if I can get this on the start of a beat, and then press play, and then you get the first beat coming in on the vinyl track. Just if you let go of start, it comes instantly back in. So it's and hopefully this should come back in on beat 1. Just missed it. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're sort of pausing it to time it with another instrument or another whatever you've got in your setup. Okay, so you've got start, stop and continue, and then briefly pause with the start button so you can synchronize it with whatever you want to synchronize it with. Another great feature of track play is the ability to play the instruments as the track is playing. So let me give you a little example of that. So if I press play, and then I can add a crash in like so. Again, I can do it with any instrument. So if I press play, so you can see you can have a bit of a performance going and improvise on the top of that as well. So another great feature about track play is that you don't have to start from the very beginning. You can dial in a starting point here. So let's go to 20, and if I press start, it starts from number 1. So what we have to do is dial it in again to 20, and then just press the stop continue, and it obviously plays from 20. Now if you want to put a number in manually, if you hold down shift, and let's go to 11, and now press enter, let go, we've got 11 set in. Obviously if you press start, it's a bit confusing because it's going to start at track 1. So start is always from the very first measure. When I say track, I actually mean measure or pattern. So if we press shift, dial in 11 again, enter, make sure it sticks, and then it's continue. Okay, so sometimes it's a little counterintuitive to what you think. You know, you think if you select 11, it's going to start at 11, but no, that's not the case. You actually have to press continue or stop/continue, but it just takes practice, that's all. Obviously, you can use forwards and backwards here. You can use the tempo knob here, and you can also use the numeric keypad. So let's go to measure 56, hold down shift, 5, 6, and enter. And it won't let us because there isn't 56 measures in this track. So let's press shift, and let's go to 4, enter, and that's job done. So if you want to quickly navigate around your measures or throughout your track, those are the 3 methods for navigating. Now the navigation tools that I've just shown you can be used when you're not playing the track, and also when you're in track write mode. So there's no confusion, let's just delete this current track. So with it in track write mode, it's a shift and then track write mode for track number 1, which we want to delete. Still holding shift, press 13 for delete. Then we're still holding shift, press last measure, then press enter. It should return back to 1. So if we put it back into track play mode, you'll see we've got a 0, and then it doesn't play any patterns because that's the track successfully deleted. One other thing to bear in mind when you are writing patterns and tracks is that when you come to put a track together, you can have 4 tracks. Then you can use any of the patterns from pattern group 1, 2 or 3, as long as they're on the corresponding bank that you've got selected. So you've got 48 patterns to choose from on bank I, and that can be in group 1, 2 or 3, and you've got the other 48 patterns to choose from on bank II on pattern group 1, 2 and 3. So bear that in mind when you put patterns together. So if we go ahead and put the unit into track write mode, so when it comes to putting our own track together, what we're going to do now is have pattern 1 going from 1 to 4, pattern 2 going from 5 to 8, pattern 3 going from 9 to 12 measures, and pattern 4 going from 13 to 16 measures. So it will basically go 1 1 1 1, 2 2 2 2, 3 3 3 3, and 4 4 4 4. So all we do to start entering our track in is we just want 1, and we want to enter that in, and we progress to number 2. We also want it on number 2, so enter, number 3, enter, number 4, enter. Now we want 2 to be on 5, 6, 7 and 8, so 2, enter, enter, enter and enter. 9 starts with pattern 3 again, pattern 3 again, and pattern 3 again. And then 13 we want 4, we want that 4 times again, so 13, 14, 15 and 16. So that should give us, if we just put it into track play, so there's the 4 number 1s, and that's the 4 number 2s, and that's the 4 number 3s, and that was the 4 number 4s, and then obviously the track stops. So you'll notice that when I play a track, it plays all the way to the end and then stops. That's only because I haven't got the cycle button highlighted. So if you press the cycle button, you'll notice next time you play the track, when it gets to the end, it will repeat over and over again until obviously you press stop. So another cool thing you can do with the drum machine is if you've programmed all your patterns on track 1 from bank I, you can then swap them and have all the patterns that you've programmed onto bank II on the same measure structure as whichever track you've got. So let me give you a quick example of that. So if we go ahead and put the unit into track right mode, and then we're just going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8, and let's just run that. So take it out of track right. Okay, so it's pretty much the track that we're currently building, and then let's just go to track right and then select, still holding shift, bank number 2. If we put this into track play mode again and run it, so you can see now we've got the same track structure, but we've actually got the patterns now used from bank I. So if you wanted 2 slightly different versions of a track, you know, slightly different style or feel, that is one quick way to do it without changing the structure of the track, but by using the different patterns in the different banks. So now we move on to copy, insert and delete. So let's just clear the confusion that everybody has, even me, over copy, insert and delete when you're making a track. So what we're going to do is take those first 4 pattern number 1s and have it so that they're 8 measures in length. So we're going to copy the first 4 measures, which has 1 1 1 1 on it basically, and copy it to 5 6 7 and 8, and see that everything else moves over further in the track. So let's have a little go at that. So first off, just make sure you're in track right mode, and then we're going to go to the point that is immediately after the measure where we want to insert the tracks. So we would be inserting the tracks here on measure number 5, so it makes sense that we go to measure number 5. So obviously any measures or bars that we copy are going to be put in between 4 and 5. So let's have a little go at that. So we press shift and we press 11, which is copy, and now we want to copy from pattern 1, enter that, and then the end pattern is obviously number 4, and then enter that. So you can now see that the current measure that we were on, which was 5, has jumped 4 along to number 9. So that means that we now have on track on measures or bars 1 to 8, we have pattern number 1. So let's just confirm that. Hold on, made a mistake. Let's put it into track play first, obviously. So obviously this is pattern number 1, pattern number 1, pattern number 1. You guessed it, pattern number 1. Still pattern number 1, pattern number 1, pattern number 1, pattern number 1 hopefully goes to pattern number 2. There we go, and pattern number 2. So if that makes sense, you're not copying patterns. That's one of the first things I needed to get out of my head. You're actually copying bars or measures in the track you've already written and inserting them in between the measure that you've got selected. So let's look at deleting measures out of your track. And there's a couple of ways we can navigate to a certain measure. You can use the tempo knob. You can use backwards and forwards. Okay, and you can also use the numeric pad, which is here. From 1 to 0. Don't be confused with these and try and put 11 in, because you'll actually end up using the copy function. So if we go to shift and we want to go to 11, you press 11 here, you're going to start copying things. Just press 1, 1, we go to 11, enter that, and we're on measure 11. So what we'll do now is we'll delete the measures in the track that have the mid toms on. So if we remember correctly, they are on 13. So obviously you can use the tempo, forwards and backwards, or shift and then 1, 3, and we enter that. And just to check, I'll press start, whoops. So again, 1, 3, enter, and then continue. Okay, so let's just check these. It runs to 16. So we know it runs from 13 to 16. So let's just use the back button now. So if we go to 13, now to delete those 4 measures, there's a couple of ways we can do it. First, we're going to specify the last step from 13 would be, the last step would be 16, the last measure, sorry, would be 16. So if we press shift, hit delete, and then we want to go to 1, 6, enter that, and then let's have a look. This should not now have the toms in. Let's just go to 12. Sorry, track, let's just go to the next one. So now we've deleted the pattern with the toms on. Obviously we've got the snares and the toms on that pattern, and that's what we expected. So obviously now 13 to 16 now have the snare rolls on. So let's shorten the track again and delete all those bars with the snare roll on. But this time what we're going to do is go back to 13, which I've just done, and then we'll press shift, delete, and then we'll go to the last measure. So from this point 13 all the way to the end of the track, it's going to delete everything. So last measure, which is telling us it's 16, enter that, and now the last track should be 13. Yep, I can't dial the tempo knob past 13, so we started on 13, we pressed shift, delete, and with shift still pressed, we press last measure because we're sort of making bar 13 the last bar, and let's see what we get. So I'm just going to put it into track play, and let's just forward it on a little bit. So hopefully now it shouldn't play track 13, because that was one of the ones we deleted. Yep, so it stops at track 12. So those last 4 bars we've deleted. So let's say now we just wanted to delete the current measure that we're on. So let's go to, well, we're already on track 1. So measure 1 or bar 1. So let's delete this, but let's do the process 4 times. So if you remember those 4 lots of pattern number 1 we copied, so we've got 8 bars now of pattern number 1. Let's get rid of all of the pattern number 1s, which is on 1 to 8, but let's just do it with a single deletes one at a time. So I've just come out of track write mode, so let's go back into track write mode. So all we do, this is the simplest way of deleting, is delete, enter, and then we have to do this 8 times. So if I get it right, delete, enter, delete, enter, delete, enter, another 4 times, delete, enter, delete, enter, delete, enter, and delete, enter. So now it should just start where the hand claps come in. So let's just put it back into track play. There we go, and then it should only be what, 8 in length now? No, it's only 4 in length, so you can see we've culled quite a lot of patterns out of our track. So obviously a very important feature of track play is the tempo. So you notice when you are in track play, you don't have the tempo, you just have the ability to scroll through the patterns, or sorry, should I say the bars or the measures. So if you press tempo, you get to the tempo option. So then let's set it to 130. And then if you want to save the tempo for this track, if you hold down tempo, and then let's just put it at 125, and then with tempo held down, press enter, that should save it. So if we go and press tempo, put this down to 120 and play it, all I have to do now to recall the tempo, so let's just have a look. The tempo is at 120, so if you hold down the tempo button and press the track that you want to recall the tempo on, it will recall the tempo. If you do it on another track, it's obviously going to go to another track and you'll lose the track that you want. So if we go back to track 1, and then obviously if we press tempo, let's just set it something bizarre. Let's just go to 150. Okay, so it will run at 150. If we recall the tempo, just press tempo, press the track that you're currently on, where you memorize the tempo, and there you go, it's back to 125. So again, just to recap, if you want to set the tempo, just press tempo, and let's set it up to 150, press tempo and press enter. That now saves that tempo. So if we pop it back down to say 20 again and run it, obviously we want to recall the correct tempo that we set for that track. Press tempo, press 1, we're back up to 150. I just hope that I'm not going too fast for this to make sense. So with track play we can also use last step, but it's pretty useless. Let me give you an example. I'll press play and then I'll set the last step quickly as step number 1, and you'll see what happens. It just plays every other consecutive measure with only 1 step, and that's why the track ended fairly quickly. So I personally would use last step when you're pattern chaining or just playing patterns manually. Leave it out of track play mode. So I think that's it for this part 2 tutorial. In the next couple of videos we'll look at shuffle settings and the flam settings, sort of how to add backbeats in, especially if you want to get those popular closed hi-hat rolls in, and we'll also look at how to set the timing on the flam, and we'll go through a couple of more things on the TR-09 which are not quite obvious, and then how to connect it up and make it sound good in a DAW, FL Studio 20, and how to save and back up your patterns and tracks onto a Windows 10 laptop. But thank you for watching, you've been ever so patient. Hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned, subscribe for the next series.